I'm joined now by John Kirby, Director of Strategic Communications for the National Security Council, who flew in here on Air Force One with the President. John, thank you so much for being here in London for this momentous occasion. Talk to me about the President's feelings. We know that the most recent thing he said, last year after his meeting the Queen was that he reminded her of his mother, which is so interesting.
Yes, it is, and I think it's reflective of obviously how much the president respects and respected his mom and his mom's fierce determination and the way she raised her family, and I think he saw a lot of that in the way the Queen not only raised and adored her family, but also had that fierce determination, that solidity here for so many decades. I had a chance earlier today to talk to a man who just left the British Army, been for 20 years, and the Queen pinned medals on his chest three times, one for bravery and one for service in Afghanistan. And I asked him, what was that like, getting a medal by the Queen of England? And he said it made all the difference in the world to him. It showed how much she loved us. And how hard we were willing to fight for our country.
Well, and in fact, she took very seriously her role as Commander-in-Chief.
She did.
And you can see the military uniforms that she always wore when she was with the troops.
Yeah.
You can see the military. This is a military event in many ways. It's a religious event, but it is also a military event. And the fact that the members of the royal family, Princess Anne wearing their military uniforms, the importance of military service, and she is the last remaining leader, to my recollection, surviving leader she was from World War II. She was in uniform,
yes,
in the motor pool.
She was.
Motor pool, learning to be a mechanic. There's some remarkable still photos of her. Black and white pictures of her in uniform during World War II.
Very true.
To my mind, one of the reasons why, for generations, there has been such loyalty to her is that she was one of the greatest generations, and she was the first British monarch to come, as I observed as a reporter, in 1984 to the first of the Normandy commemorations where all the leaders were gathered, and again in 94, that was with Ronald Reagan in 94, hosting President Clinton, taking him and the First Lady on the Royal Yacht Britannia from Portsmouth and coming over to crossing the Channel. And all of that, all of those commemorations were of a great military Allied victory.
And she had such a role in so many of those historic events. I mean, think about what she saw, but it wasn't just her witness to history from World War II to today. It was the leadership she demonstrated in the United Kingdom, the way in which she shepherded the British military participation in all those conflicts. And it meant a lot to her. And you're right, this is a family, a royal family of service. They have generation after generation, right up to Harry, served in the military and defended not only the United Kingdom, but the common security interest of all their allies and partners.
I know you're in a civilian role now, but I should just point out to our audience that you had Navy service. You were an admiral when I first met you. It was at the Pentagon, then at the State Department, now at the White House. So I know you fully appreciate the military connections there. Speaking of the military, let me turn to Ukraine.
Sure.
The President is going to be meeting next week in the UN, at the UN General Assembly margins, with Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister, who is one of the last people to see the Queen at Balmoral when she was presenting her credentials, really 2 days before she passed. Extraordinary that she was still doing her duty up until the very end. And there's a lot there's so much at stake right now in Ukraine. While many people in the Allied in NATO and among our closest allies are celebrating Ukraine's recent victories in the Northeast, there is caution that I'm hearing from the administration, from some of our closest allies, including our Western European allies, that we still don't know what Vladimir Putin's response will be if his back is against the wall. Most recently, both India and China, his two most important remaining allies and sanctions avoiders, have expressed concern at a recent meeting. Both, the leaders, Modi and Xi, saying they're not happy about the war. What might he do? Might he return to weapons of mass destruction, to chemical or tactical nuclear weapons?
It's difficult to know exactly how Mr. Putin's going to react to there's only one way to put it, and that's the failures that he continues to experience on the battlefield, particularly there in the Northeast and the Donbass region, but even elsewhere in the South. He has conducted retaliatory strikes that we've seen in just the last few days on civilian infrastructure and the power grid in Ukraine, in response to the advances that the Ukrainian military has made up there in the north. We obviously don't want to see this war escalate any more than it already has. It's already been so brutal on the Ukrainian people. I mean, just think about the mass graves that we're seeing out of Izium. So obviously, nobody has an interest in seeing this escalate. And you and I have talked about this before. The escalation of this conflict has been something on our minds since the very beginning. But on the other hand, Ukraine was invaded illegally and in an unprovoked way. And they absolutely have the right and the responsibility to defend themselves and their territory, and they're doing that. So what we're going to do is continue to support them. And you saw the president just signed out another $600 million of drawdown authority a few days ago, more ammunition for those rocket systems, more artillery rounds for them so that they can continue these counteroffensives. And we're going to keep doing that in lockstep with them.
Well, to that point, I know the HIMARS have been very significant, the drones, all of this extraordinary military support, and $600 million additional now in the drawdown. But there is reporting in the New York Times today that there is concern in the White House by the president that if we now give Ukraine the heavier equipment that they're requesting, there will be a reaction from Vladimir Putin that we certainly don't want to see a further escalation. So how do you resolve that concern?
Yeah, look, I think I would, as I was saying before, I mean, since the very beginning, two things have been true, Andrea. One is...
And, John, let me just interrupt you because we're seeing another condolence book being signed by the president. And I assume we'll learn a bit later from the gathering pool that's been traveling with him. From you White House officials, what he is writing. But I'm sure it's a very personal and deeply felt commitment. And he may be saying something afterwards. Do you know if he will, John?
I think it's possible.
But I interrupted you as you were talking about the level of support.
I mean, since the beginning, we have been working in lockstep with the Ukrainians, Andrea, and we have been trying to provide them the capabilities they need as the fight evolves. So that's why they come in tranches. That's why they come in groupings like this, because the fight's changed. In the very early weeks, it was Javelin anti-tank missiles and Stinger air defense missiles that they needed. Now it's artillery rounds and the rocket systems that they want that will give them deeper range because the fight is on more open ground right now. In the north and the Donbass, it's not unlike Kansas. A lot of farmland, a lot of open flat land. And the Russians have established defensive lines, particularly in the south. And so these artillery rocket systems that we're providing them allow the Ukrainians to get some distance. They get some range. They can target command and control and supply depots and legitimate Russian military targets well behind their lines. And so we're going to keep talking to them about the capabilities they need going forward.
And any additional concerns about Putin right now?
Well, I think we're always doing the best we can to monitor the Russian reactions, to monitor Russian military activities. I can just tell you, look, we've seen nothing that would give us pause to rethink our own strategic posture, but this is something that we're watching all the time.
Speaking to some European allies recently, their consensus is that he'll never give up, because to give up would mean regime change. It would be the end for him. So he will go to any length if necessary.
Well, we certainly hope that's not the case. Look, he has not come off of his...
Let's listen, the president is speaking.
Well, I can say that the ones who stand out in your mind are those whose relationship and interaction with you are consistent with their reputation. And when the Queen had us to the castle for tea and we were joking crimpets, she kept offering me more. I kept eating everything she put in front of me. But she was the same in person as her image. decent, honorable, and all about service. And our hearts go out to the royal family, to King Charles and all the family. It's a loss that leaves a giant hole. And sometimes you think you'll never overcome it. But as I've told the king, she's going to be with him every step of the way, every minute, every moment. And that's a reassuring notion. So to all the people of England, all the people of the United Kingdom, our hearts go out to you. And you were fortunate to have had her for 70 years. We all were. The world's better for her. Thank you.
Mr. President, why does she remind you of your mother?
Just because the way she touched when she leaned over, the way she had that look like, are you okay? Anything I can do for you? What do you need? And then also make sure you do what you're supposed to do.
What do you think she meant to the wider world beyond the UK, Mr. President?
Well, I think, look, the American press has heard me say for a long time, but I think the thing that is, maybe it's too much, if you excuse the expression, the Irish of it, but it's about treating people with dignity. I talk about how my mother and father thought that everyone, no matter who they were, no matter what their station, no matter where they're from, deserved to be treated with dignity. And that's exactly what she communicated. Just the way she walked by her staff, just the way she acted. And I think what she gave is a sense of, maybe above all, the notion of service. We all owe something. There's something within our capacity to do that can make things, not just the world better, but your neighborhood better, your household better, your workplace better. And that's what she communicated to me anyway. And it was an honor to meet her. An honor to meet her. Thank you. Which way are we going?
Well, with that, I mean, it's really extraordinary. He spoke of dignity, honor, and service, and then answered a question about why she reminded him of his mother, which is what I recalled him saying to Peter Alexander after the G7. And he said that, service and dignity, but, do what you have to do.
The way she treated everybody, and then that sense of duty. Duty is really that one word that comes to mind when you think of the Queen. I mean, it was for 70 years always putting the nation first.
I'm also struck, and we know that we've heard the president speak openly about the grief over the death of his family, of Beau, and before that his first wife and child, and that there's always a hole in your heart. He says that to people in times of loss, and he recalled just now, as I said to the king, there'll always be a hole in your heart, but she will be with you every step of the way. Yeah. So I think that was very personal. That was so Joe Biden, wasn't it?
Very poignant moment, and the president is never afraid to talk about his own struggle with grief and what he had to go through and how he came out on the other side. And I think for people that get to know the president and get to talk to him, certainly those who have suffered grief, I mean, they see it in his eyes. They can feel it, that he knows what they're going through.
And before I let you go, John, I want to ask you about Friday night and the meetings with the Griner and Whelan families, because that gets back to the way he responds to people. This is why, frankly, Cherelle Griner wanted to meet with him, not just talk to him, but meet with him, because she'd been persuaded by Trevor Reed's family that when you meet with Joe Biden, he connects, and they are, correctly or not, analogizing it to, well, Trevor Reed got out shortly after that meeting, and maybe having met Cherelle Griner and met Elizabeth Whelan, maybe he will agree to something sooner. But we talked on Friday about this. There's no deal on the table because the Russians have shown no sign of being constructive.
Well, there is a deal on the table, Andrew.
That the U.S.
that we have put forward, and it's a serious deal, a serious offer, and we continue to urge the Russians to take it. It was important for the president to meet with both the Whelan and the Griner families so that they could look him in the eye and see how dedicated he is to getting them home, and he is absolutely committed to that. We are not giving up. We will continue to work night and day to get those two back with their families where they belong.
Ultimately, it will be the president's decision because in the past, as I've been told by Mike McFaul, the former U.S. ambassador, who was part of a major spy swap, if you will, some years ago when he was ambassador in Russia, ultimately it's the president who has to decide. The prosecutors, the FBI, the intelligence community is usually opposed to giving these people up. But it's the President of the United States who has to make the tough decision, is it worth it to get our Americans home? And those are tough trade-offs.
There's no easy decision here. No matter how this comes out, it will be the results of some difficult decisions. But you're right, Andrea. Decisions by the President of the United States, and he takes that responsibility very, very seriously.
John Kirby, I can't thank you enough. A busy schedule to break from your official duties and be with us and talk about it all, and we'll follow up as the day progresses, and tomorrow, and then at the UN.
Yes, I'll see you in the UN for
Yes.
sure. Absolutely. Great to be with you. Thank you.